Hello. I'm going to paint you a word picture. It's February 4th, 1987. You're a police officer in Tallahassee, Florida. You get a phone call reporting suspicious behavior by two men in a local park. Now, upon arriving to the park, you encounter the following. Two clean-cut young men in their 20s, both wearing well-tailored dark suits. They're driving a filthy and run-down Dodge van. They're accompanied by 6 children, ranging in ages from 2 to 11. The kids are covered in dirt, with their hair matted and their skin clearly displaying countless insect bites. The children appear to be somewhat malnourished. One kid has what appears to be an adult human bite mark. Another one displays possible signs of sexual assault. Upon being asked to identify... Hey, guess what? I'm interrupting via the phone camera shot right now because I'm moving currently and I've already put the big camera away. And I have not... I realized I forgot to explain what this video is. We have hit 200,000. And so we're covering the #1 most requested thing by far for this channel. The finders. So we'll be going back to my monologue. Themselves, the two men remain silent. When further questioned regarding the nature of their relationship to and legal guardian status over the kids, one of the men quickly responds that they're teachers. They're bringing the kids back to a school for geniuses that they study at in Mexico. So you ask for the name of the school, and also, what they're doing in Tallahassee if they're going to Mexico, considering that they can't exactly just drive across the Gulf. In response to these very basic questions, the two men become visibly nervous. They stop responding. One of them pretends to faint. The other one just decides to lay down on the ground and go limp, at which point he is picked up and carried to jail. Now, I don't know about you, but something about these circumstances feels a little off to me. No, so this situation is obviously incredibly weird. However, after taking the men and the kids back to the police station and starting to interview them, a clearer picture started to emerge. The children and the men were part of a communal New Age group calling themselves the Finders. This group was based in Washington, D.C., with multiple properties in D.C. and Virginia. Membership consisted of 20 adults and 7 children, led by an enigmatic leader by the name of Marion Petty. When interviewed, the kids reported being given an extraordinary degree of freedom and self-governance as a group, as well as living outside. When questioned about sexual assault, all children denied it, but some were reportedly nervous and uncomfortable. The kids explained that they were not in school, and generally did as they wished without interference from the adults. They reportedly spent much of their time playing games, and would sometimes be taught new ones by the leader, Petty. When asked what the most recent game they learned to play was, many of them reported that it was a game where you find a grown-up who's asleep or laying down on the ground, and go through his jacket and take his wallet and money. With this strange set of information, the Tallahassee Police Department got in contact with the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department, and they informed them of the arrest and the situation. After hearing this news, the D.C. MPD officer reportedly said something to the effect of, "Holy shit, we've been looking into these weirdos. We're gonna go search their properties here." After obtaining a search warrant on the basis of the testimony offered by the kids, the D.C. Police Department searched 2 different properties belonging to the group. However, at this point, the situation went from really weird to extremely weird. For starters, the 2 properties owned were very different from one another. One of them, which I'll hereafter call the HQ, was a compound or duplex of 2 adjoining large fancy townhouses in the very expensive Georgetown or Glover Park neighborhood. The other one was an industrial warehouse space near the intersection of 4th Street Northeast and New York Avenue. Now, this is a pretty rough area even now, and back in the late 80s, during the peak of DC being the nation's murder capital in addition to its regular capital, this was one of the single most dangerous parts of the city. Actually, this was one of the single most dangerous places in the country, as a whole for that matter. Next, let's take a look at what was uncovered during the search. On February 7th, 3 days after the arrest in Tallahassee, the Washington Post published this article. Authorities investigating the alleged abuse of 6 children found with 2 men in a Tallahassee, Florida park discovered material yesterday in the Washington area that they say points to a 1960s-style commune called the Finders, described in a court document as a cult that allegedly conducted brainwashing and used children in rituals. Whew, that's a hell of a sentence. DC police, who searched a Northeast Washington warehouse linked to the group, removed large plastic bags filled with color slides, photographs, and photographic contact sheets. Some photos visible through the bag carried from the warehouse were wallet-sized pictures of children similar to school photos, and some were of naked children. DC police sources said that some of the items seized yesterday showed pictures of children engaged in what appeared to be cult rituals. Officials of the U.S. Customs Service, called in to aid the investigation, said that photographs showed children involved in bloodletting ceremonies and one photograph of a child in chains. Customs officials said they were looking into whether or not a child pornography operation was being conducted. Their links to the D.C. area have led authorities into a far-reaching investigation that includes the Finders, a group of about 40 people that court documents allege is led by a man named Marion Petty, and their various homes, including the duplex apartment building in Glover Park, the Northeast Washington warehouse, and a 90-acre farm in rural Madison County, Virginia. So, given all that, this sounds pretty open and shut, right? Well, apparently not, because this would be about as far as the investigation went. You see, progress at the MPD had stopped being made. Updates stopped being given to the Tallahassee Police Department. The MPD turned over all evidence to the U.S. Customs Service. The U.S. Customs Service turned over the evidence to the, wouldn't you know, the State Department. I mean, surely they wouldn't destroy a giant cache of evidence of a child exploitation and trafficking ring twice, right? Would they? Oh, they did? We gotta stop giving evidence to those guys. All charges against the men were dropped. The Washington Post quietly published a redaction of the initial story, and a memo was sent out to the USCS informing them that the case was being transferred as it was an internal CIA matter. And as a result, all case files for both the MPD and USCS were classified secret. So that really doesn't make me any less suspicious. Now, the official narrative of the Finders' ties to the CIA are that A, Petty's wife worked there as a secretary, and B, that one of the adult members of the Finders worked at a company that had been contracted to provide technical and computer training to employees of the CIA. So that doesn't, that sounds kind of, like a nothing burger. These statements are both true. However, two things are usually left out of this. Firstly, that Petty's son worked for Air America. This is also the CIA. Secondly, the company that one of the members of the Finders worked for that provided technical and computer training to the CIA was entirely owned and operated by the Finders. Additionally, the CIA doesn't really tend to subcontract out work as much as they tend to either just start allegedly independent front companies or just sort of absorb existing companies into being the CIA's private example of that service. Like Air America or Accutron or whatever. So, following this, the operation pretty much just vanishes into thin air. It remains reasonably obscure locally in DC, and almost unknown outside the city to basically anybody other than conspiracy theorists. However, in 2019, because of a huge document release by the FBI under the Freedom of Information Act, it began to take on a new life. So, this is the FBI FOIA file on the Finders. And also this, and this, and this. In addition to an enormous amount of fluff and filler and stuff, designed to just make it take forever to read, as well as a bunch of stuff confirming in more explicit words what we kind of assumed to have happened, i.e. a transcript of a call between the USCS and a CIA employee where it was acknowledged that the investigation was squashed due to it stepping on toes. There are two pages in particular that have started to get a particular amount of attention recently. This is a map of the tunnels alleged to have been uncovered by an excavation of the foundation of McMartin Preschool, of Satanic Panic fame. Many people, myself at one point included, took these to be internal documents from the FBI. That would provide pretty cut-and-dry evidence of there having been an explicitly organized and intentional cover-up of the case. Now, unfortunately, the truth of this is somewhat murkier. Hey, guess who has one free thumb and accidentally deleted critical footage for the voiceover part? Anyways, basically these maps for the excavation were done, like, the operation was privately done by a guy named Ted Gunderson, who is the person who submitted it to the FBI. I think we can pick up here. So unfortunately, what this means is that the validity and accuracy of these pages now depends on your feelings towards Ted Gunderson. And I don't know confidently enough one way or the other to say for sure. Ted Gunderson, for those unfamiliar, is an FBI agent who worked as the head of the Memphis, Dallas, and eventually Los Angeles FBI offices, and was interviewed, although eventually not chosen, for the position of FBI director. However, now he's better known for being an outspoken advocate for the awareness of basically every conspiracy theory ever, ranging from the more grounded, true ones, to the more dramatic ones that... So, he has a position and reputation as a sort of patron saint of the QAnon movement, and due to the fact that he was one of the first major names to publicize the whole, like, Illuminati vampires are eating thousands of children every year to absorb their power and be evil. Which, you know, that's something that we all know is only kind of true. So I'm not gonna get into that side of it. I'm not gonna, like, take a position one way or another on Gunderson because of the incredibly polarized nature of both his defenders and detractors. For all we know, he could have given himself arsenic poisoning. So the question arises, why was this document in there? Honestly, as far as I can tell, I think this was included as like a distraction of sorts from the rest of the stuff. Like, given the ambiguous provenance of it and the very contentious nature of the topic and the author, like, it seems like kind of a perfect thing to toss in there to get people arguing with one another. So from this point forward, this is more or less just conjecture and my personal theory about what's going on here. Reading the documents, the surprising thing to me, you know, upon, you know, sifting through all 900-something pages of these, is just how little of it actually had to do with anything related to the Tallahassee arrest, anything, you know, relating to child exploitation, any, you know, the nefarious, you know, actions of the 70s or 80s. If you look at the FOIA document vaults for, you know, topics like, you know, North Fox Island or, you know, Project Delta, that sort of thing, it's, you know, the entire document is pretty clear of what it is. Like, you know, even, you know, though, like, a lot of it's redacted, you can still, it's, you know, it's obvious. Like, you know what you're looking at and reading. With this, like, I have no idea what the fuck half of it is. Like, most of the document is just about, like, computer shit. And I guess that sort of tracks, given the, you know, like, reports of, like, upon, you know, searching the warehouse on 4th Street, like, a lot of, you know, the inventories of things taken made mention of, like, computers and, like, technological equipment that was not available on the market. Like, stuff that's, you know, like a computer from 5 years from now, basically. So, to get the first two things out of the way that I think everyone who has interacted with this case at all is on the same page on. First of all, you know, as a group, the Finders, they were so goddamn weird. They were just a really weird philosophical New Age cult that seemed to actually, like, do the stuff they were talking, like, you know, that's, you know, that's their prerogative. It didn't seem to be inherently, you know, focused around child abuse. Like, it's, if anything, that happened incidentally. So the other thing that a lot of these documents were devoted to was just a collection of the complaints from the, you know, people of DC against the members of the Finders. But it wasn't for anything nefarious, generally speaking, as much as it was just stuff that's annoying and weird. Like, just report after report after report complaining about, men in suits going to City Hall and, just spending all day hogging the, records room to just be sifting through, like, every deed to every plot of land in the city, seeing who owns it. Going places and just, like, riding the elevator up and down all day. Walking around and just taking pictures of people, like, going outside their house. Not, like, running away or trying to hide it. It's just, like, and they're like, hey, why are you taking a picture of me? It's like, hassling businesses for tax information. Just calling companies and asking them, like, questions about, the company's financial statement. Like, just weird, annoying stuff. All right, screw this. I have tried, doing this take just sort of off the top of the dome, like 5 or 10 times to get it to sound natural. Basically, the best theory that I can come up with is that, the finders did work for the CIA. They were part of it, but their job and, what they were supposed to be doing was, it's not what people think or, assume, which is that it's, they're the ones, selling the kids on Wayfair or whatever. Like, I think what their job was, I think they did computer shit. Like, I think it was like, I think it was like, just a computer and logistics and technology group. And I think one of the members of the group seemed to have been involved in other nefarious, shadowy government, stuff. Like, something that's an important distinction to kind of realize is that the photographs and slides and stuff like that they took from the HQ in the warehouse were not of the kids that lived with them. Like, I think the kids that lived with them were just their kids who they were like, like, oh yeah, like, go live outside. We got, like, computer stuff to do. And we got people to go annoy. But the weird, just sort of, like, confluence and conflux of, like, a group of people who are just weird as hell already, and, also doing secret shit that they can't explain, and then on top of that, like, with one person or, multiple people, I seemingly involved in other kinds of child exploitation things. I think that people kind of, put 2 and 2 together and came up with 5. Well, this case, I guess, kind of just goes to show you that, not everything is going to have, like, a, explanation that makes sense, or going to be a satisfying wrap-up or conclusion. A lot of things are just sort of confusing, weird clusterfucks. I don't know. Like, I've been trying to find a, good way to sort of sum up this video or, my thoughts on the case for, 15 minutes at this point. And the best I can come up with is, like, an analogy where it's like, if you thought, you were gonna catch your kid smoking weed, like, out back, but it's like, you go out and you're like, hi, what is, I gotcha. And it turns out that, like, no, they're actually running, like, a crypto pump and dump. It's like, okay, well, that's not what it's like, okay, well, that makes all that weird behavior make a bit more sense, I guess. Like, it's...
Call me right, I creep at night. Posse deep is how I creep. Call me right on the street with that fucking side out. Tell me about the clip.